meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Thank you very much. Next up would be opportunity for citizens to speak. Do we have anybody that would like to address the committee? Anyone? It's a large group for no one to come forward. All righty, moving on to our bright lights. Bright lights tonight are the Mindful Maze. There they are. STEM Academy, Randall Campus.
Good evening. My name is
Evening.
Melissa Horn.
Welcome.
Thank you. I am the principal at Randall STEM, and I have Karen Steen, our school psychologist, with us. And we have some students here that are going to share with you, and I think that's all I'm going to say because they've been practicing and they're just going to take it away.
Welcome to our Randall STEM Bright Lights presentation. I'm Addie Probst.
I'm Joey Anderson.
I'm Jack Malozic.
I'm Ethan Fly.
There are many bright lights at STEM, but we choose to talk about our mindful practices. And we are going to show you what they look like and how they are important to our school.
Research has shown us that mindfulness practices help everyone, kids and adults, especially in 4 ways. We're going to talk to you about 2 of these ways and how they help us at Randall STEM.
The first 2 are important, but we're only going to talk about the last 2. Number 3, mindfulness improves our ability to focus and make decisions. I need to be able to focus at school because there's lots of distractions around me. And we do group projects all the time, and I need to practice for presentations. So there's a lot of collaborating all the time.
Number 4 is mindfulness boosts creativity and problem solving. At our school, we use creativity and problem solving. So Mind Daddy and our Mindful Maze helps us clear our minds and gets the hubbub out of our brains. This helps me become refreshed and ready to learn. Hubbubs are thoughts that interfere with you thinking clearly and they distract you from doing your best and make you feel overwhelmed. For example, sometimes I come to school with stress on my mind. And I can do a mindful practice at our school, which helps me get ready to learn and focus on my work instead of what's stressing me out.
At Randall STEM, we have 2 ways we practice mindfulness. One is by watching short videos which take us through mindful exercises, and the other is by taking a lap on our mindful maze. Ethan and I are going to talk to you about our mindful maze, and Annie and Joey will talk to you about Mind Yeti.
When we feel like we need a break or when our teacher asks us to take a break, we can help our bodies refocus and get ready for learning by going downstairs and doing the mindful maze. Sometimes the teacher takes the whole class to do it.
What's the mindful maze? It's a series of activities that are mapped out with tape on our basement floor. I'm going to show you a video and explain what we do at each step. This is Ethan and I. We start with a mindful walk. So we then do some jumping. Then we jump on the lines. And we have a sideways walk. And then on the purple line we switch sides. All the way over to the lines, and then we jump onto the numbers depending on their order. Then we jump on do some more jumping, and then we turn our bodies depending on the air. And then we have to make a decision. This one is the plank walk, and the other one is some more jumping. And then we go on our tippy toes and raise our hands up while going through it. And then we get a drink of water.
That's a lot of words. Good for you.
Hydrate.
It's good for our brains, basically. So then we do a duck walk. And the most important part of it is the end, where you jump on the dots, you take a deep breath, smile, and go back to class. So that's the mindful maze for you.
Now we are going to talk to you about another mindful practice at STEM called Mind Yeti. Mind Yeti can be done with the whole class, a small group, or even by yourself. Some kids at STEM like to do it when they're upset or stressed. Some kids like to do it after school or after recess to calm down. I like to do this every Monday because a lot of things happen over the weekend, and Mind Yeti helps me get back in the mood for school.
like to do this in a small group because I know there are others with stress on their brain, and we are working as a team to clear our brains with Mind Yeti. We're going to show you what a Mind Yeti mindful moment is. Typically, the videos we watch are 4 to 6 minutes long, and we do this after lunch a couple times per week or more if needed. It starts with a chime, which helps us focus our brain and be in the moment. I'll show you. Do it. We ring the chime until it fades into silence. Then we start the video.
The Mind Yeti video is a short lesson giving us a strategy to try to calm down the hubbub in our brains. Like in this video, it asks you to pretend you're planting a seed of kindness. Let's watch the video so you can see how it works.
Just a second of it, yeah. Not too long. I guess it's up.
Hello, welcome to Mind Yeti. There are lots of ways to spread kindness. You can send people kind thoughts, smile at others, or be kind to nature. Practicing kindness helps you feel connected to the world around you. It can also help you settle the hubbub. Find your Yeti body. You can close your eyes.
Both the Mindful Maze and the Mind Yeti videos help us get ready to focus so we can do some good problem solving and get our creative thoughts flowing.
Mindful practices at STEM are a fun way to help us deal with stress. Thank you for listening to our presentation. We can now take any questions that you have.
Any questions? Mr. Baumgart?
Yeah, we can't let this go. This was,
Hey.
you know what? Some of us get mine screwed up too.
Oh.
But do you believe it really has helped you?
Yeah, I think it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it really goes on throughout the years, and basically, yeah.
Okay. How about the rest of you?
I think it helps because I sometimes have stress, and when I feel like I'm really overwhelmed, I do a Mind Yeti video, and it has different strategies which we can use like whenever we're stressed at home or doing an activity at school when we don't want to go downstairs and do a Mind Yeti video. But I really think it's helpful.
You said something that was interesting. Do you have a way to do this at home?
Yes, Mind Yeti is a website, so you have to sign up for free to do it, and then we have the premium at school.
So you can use it on your iPads?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank all of you.
How do you do it at school?
Miss Dean has her computer, so then after lunch we all go down to the basement, and then we go in this room, and then we watch the Mind Yeti video.
You watch what video?
The Mind Yeti video.
And that helps you with stress?
Yes, and we do it with the whole class sometimes too.
Have you figured out what causes you stress during the day at school?
Not really.
Not really, huh? But you know you're having stress.
Yeah, like I freak out.
You freak out. How do you freak out?
Well, I just like can't focus on anything, and I just can't do anything.
Uh-huh. Huh.
No,
It doesn't happen to you?
not really. I'm mostly really good. It doesn't really happen that much, but it does sometimes at least.
And what do you do when it does?
I just sometimes do the Mindful Maze or Mind Yeti, you know. Do it.
Any other questions?
Oh.
Dietz?
How does the mindful maze, how do you get permission to use the mindful maze?
From your teacher, or you just feel like you need a break.
And then, have you ever seen a staff person at your school use the mindful maze?
No,
No?
no.
But would
But
you,
that would. What?
go ahead.
What was that again?
Have you ever seen a staff
Have
person
you ever seen me do it?
use it?
No.
Oh.
No?
No, I haven't really seen it, but that would be cool anyway.
Well, do you think they need to use it sometimes?
Yeah.
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 Of course they do.
There's a good chance.
But if they,
Yeah,
but if
good
they do it, they
chance.
do
It's a
it
good
privately, right? It's done privately, they do it privately?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Sometimes we probably take breaks and go down and walk the mindful maze.
It's a very good strategy, so thank you for sharing that. I might even use it myself.
Mrs. Roddy.
Yes, thank you. Are these mindfulness practices, are they for the older grades or is it for everybody in the school?
For basically everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah,
Oh,
anybody.
that's great.
What, do you wanna share, like Ethan, what level are you? What level are you?
Level 1,
And what is that? Are you a younger or older on level 1? Tell them.
older.
And older on level 1. Jack, where are you?
I am at level 2. I'm an older again.
I'm in 5th grade. I'm also in 5th grade.
So it's everyone across the school.
Everyone.
Everyone has access to the mindful maze as well as Mind Yeti.
Thank you.
So if I'd come and visit you, would you show me how to do it?
Sure.
Yeah, we welcome any visitors, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
Barbara, we don't want you jumping in there.
Oh, well,
You?
might be good for me to
Would be
jump.
great.
Might be good to jump.
Be careful.
Hand walking.
Yeah. Well, excellent presentation. You all are fantastic public speakers.
Even what you do.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you.
Very much. Alrighty. Yeah, I know. Moving on to our action items. First action item is approval of the Teaching and Learning Committee minutes from September 4th, 2018. Do I
So
have-
moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Roddy, or more with Mrs. Roddy on that one. Alrighty, is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? Nothing?
Look good.
Nothing? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. In favor. Next action item is approval of DPI waiver. Middle school flexibility. We all love flexibility. Okay. Oh,
All right, there.
welcome, gentlemen.
Oh,
Thank you for seeing us. Look forward to
Hi.
hearing your presentation on middle school flexibility.
we'll see if we get,
Oh, it's gonna work.
it'll work.
There it is.
We're flexible.
That's what it's all about.
All right, so, good evening, and thank you for having Bob and I present to you on the topic of our districts of innovation. The focus of our application and the discussion tonight, asking for your approval of this DPI waiver to allow flexibility at the middle level in the areas of music, art, and physical education, is really centered around this idea that what does the DPI's District of Innovation application and how it's leveraged to support the flexibility and student achievement at the middle level. So Bob will talk a little bit about this application and how it came about, but it's centered, and the belief and spirit is housed within our framework for the district. So if we take a look at our mission and our vision about developing students to be college, career, and community ready, as well as leveraging our 21st century skills, and then our looking at our values of personalizing the learning and holding high academic expectations for all. This application really speaks to an idea of how might we at the middle level reimagine our expectations that the state places upon us, and ways that we can look at it differently that will further achieve those goals and our mission. So
I just want to add a little bit to the why. I actually had an opportunity as part of my superintendent practicum that I completed over the last couple school years. Is DPI about a year and a half ago packaged this District of Innovations, basically a bulletin that came out, and we're all very excited to learn more about it, and I had a chance to dig in, explore, do some some learning around it, share some learning with some principals and some district leaders. So it's really, the purpose really to provide districts local decisions to barriers they're finding in whether it's licensure, a number of things. As I came to learn, this is something that's always been available to school districts, but they really wanted to encourage, from the Department of Public Instruction, that if there's barriers that are getting in the way of providing like a well-rounded experience for students, they want to be able to get out of the way. So I thought that was a great opportunity for me to learn more as part of my programming, but then also like, how could I bring that back to the district and then to Horning and then the middle school. So excited about that. The process, this slide that Dan has up is really, kind of outlines, the 3 bullet points of what this looks like, and really districts can apply to become a district of innovation on behalf of one school, all the schools. Specifically today, we're really going to be focused on the middle level. And the application process, really, it talks about, our proposal in detail talks about how they're going to align with our strategic direction, demonstrate the request for exemption will improve outcomes for students, how it's aligned with our core values and beliefs that Dan spoke to. And the DPI waivers, once they're approved, they're good for 4 years. So I thought that was a great opportunity for us to go down a road, and I'll talk a little bit about our what we're requesting today. So really the goal and objectives are very simple. 2 bullet points: more choice for students and greater flexibility in scheduling. I have an opportunity as the master schedule at the high school. I've done that when I was in my time at North, and then involved with it at Horning, is we always run into barriers with scheduling. So what this waiver application would afford us specifically is we're looking for flexibility with art, grade 6, physical education, and music. So really, we want to be able to offer, we don't want to get rid of any of those things, but for example, I'll use art. Right now, the DPI legislation says it needs to take place in 6th grade, okay? So we definitely value art as part of the middle school programming. We're just requesting a little bit more flexibility, and the same can be said for music. We see that as we look at a comprehensive middle school experience for students. We want that. Physical education relates more specifically to if it has to be offered over the course of a year or a semester. So they're pretty modest requests, in my opinion, that we want to try, but they are things that we do need to seek a waiver and get permission from DPI.
And so that first step in that process really comes to submitting the application, getting the board's approval of submitting that. And as Bob had said, state law and state statute require every year education in art and music up through 6th grade, and then in 7th and 8th grade it becomes more of an elective area. And so, as he said, we're not getting rid of any of the requirements. Every student in middle school has to take art and music. We just want to allow them the ability to say, if they want to take it in 7th grade as opposed to 6th grade because of some other things that are already in the 6th grade schedule, we want to open that opportunity for it. So it's not mandating anything, it is just giving them the option.
Give me an example of what art might look like under this plan that you're asking us to approve.
It would, I don't anticipate like a huge change in terms of the learning targets or the curriculum. It's just a matter of where that it's placed.
Right, such as?
It could be 6th, 7th, or 8th grade.
Okay.
So right now, it forces us, we have to prioritize art in 6th grade because, so you can see how that creates when we have, a class of 300 students come in and they all have to have art.
Right.
It doesn't afford us the same flexibility we're looking for. It requires music in 6th grade. We want to have music, we value it, we just want to have flexibility.
Thank you. Just a comment, I guess. Sometimes things just make sense. This makes sense. As opposed to, I didn't even realize the parameters were so limited in prior to doing this. And reading it in here, but I really applaud you on the fact that you're wanting to do this because it's going to be better for the kids. I think you answered the question I had in there. They will all still have they all will have to have the same courses that they've been getting. It's just that you're going to mix them up in what years they get them in. Which means you will have, I suppose, some sixth graders in classes with seventh or eighth, and the classes will get a little bit mixed. I mean, I don't see it as a problem, I'm just asking.
Potentially, that could be one option. Each year, the middle school principals and myself have sat down and looked at that middle school scheduling model and have said, you know, what is the driver of the schedule? And when Bob brought this application, and we did a WebEx to the district, and then a small team of middle school principals came together around this. We just said, right now, this is one of the many drivers in the schedule, and if this could be something that could be loosened up and still have the expectation, but provide the opportunity in a variety of different ways based on the student and family's choice, we think that that's going to help push students to take the courses that they find that call to them, and then place these courses where it makes the most sense. So.
And I would say that it fits nicely with the culture that we've tried to create in this district, to do things intelligently and find barriers and get rid of them. And I appreciate, Bobby, putting it that way.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Could this be integrated into other coursework other than those 3 courses?
As far as flexibility,
There is, okay.
we identified these 3 state statutes that we're asking for flexibility, but as Bob had talked about, the application actually speaks to a variety of different ones. These are the 3 that we felt were the ones that would make the greatest impact at this time.
Mrs. Reddy.
Yes, thank you. By giving, I like the idea of this, but just, my mind somehow always goes to devil's advocate. So giving the students flexibility to either take these courses in 6th, not have to take in 6th grade, go to 7th or 8th, do you anticipate seeing some just waiting till the last year, and then your problem is the same as if it were in 6th grade? That would be in 8th grade?
Well,
Does that make sense? Sorry.
yep, no, I think I understand, and let me phrase it this way. Our greatest amount of flexibility as far as elective course offerings is in 8th grade. So if a student who chooses to take art in 8th grade would be gaining that elective option in 6th grade. So,
I think what we may find, I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces with that. If we look at primarily our choice electives happened in 7th and 8th grade, we may find in the end that most of these students in 6th grade are getting art and general music or whatever music class they take anyway. So that may be a consequence of this. But at least it gives us the flexibility if we get into special circumstances, a student needs special programming, that we're able to offer that. So I think when we step back and reflect on this, we might say, well, boy, we may add some flexibility, but it may impact a minimal amount of students perhaps.
So are there more than 1 music and more than 1 art classes offered in 6th grade? Or just 1 of each?
currently we offer a general music, band, and choir, right?
Yeah, orchestra
That's
too.
Orchestra too.
So there isn't anything else that would, they could take to fulfill that? I didn't think so.
Bunger.
This is an action item, right?
Yes, sir.
I would like to move for approval of the School District of Waukesha's District of Innovation application for flexibility at the 6th grade level or at all levels?
6th grade.
It's just the 6th grade that has, oh, that's the only place you have to.
Well, the FIAD piece of it.
And the FIAD component of that is, currently FIAD is offered as a semester, but it's every other day. So the flexibility would be allowing students,
Okay.
and that would be 6, 7, and 8. They
So
could
with,
take it.
so this is accurate as said here?
Yep.
Okay, 6th grade level.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ernie, I have one question. There was, in one of the slides, it said evidence of improved student outcome. What would that look like with a flexible schedule? I mean, how would you prove that to the DPI? It sounds very vague, and I know the DPI likes bag statements like that, because then they can say you didn't prove it. So what would it look like? What do you think it's gonna look like? What are they gonna look for when you submit this evidence?
Well, I think first of all is the amount of students that get their first choice in the courses they select would be in evidence, and those are things that some metrics we can take a look at, or when the master schedule runs, and without going into a lot of detail with that, we get a percentage and improved percentage on that, satisfaction from students, and I think the goal is to try to accommodate as much as possible. I mean, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, well, yeah, but, I mean, my concern is you don't have to really answer my question, you have to answer DPI's questions. You know, I mean, because outcome, I mean, that can mean different things. It could mean a satisfaction survey, you know, a CSI score, or it could mean that, because some of the kids took the art later, they got better grades in it.
Yeah.
You know, what I mean,
Yeah.
I just wonder what they're looking for when they make statements like that.
We are too.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I figured.
in the end, you're gonna give, hopefully approval, and then they will have to do the same.
Yes, okay, excellent. All right. So it's an action item, and we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? That is 5-0 approval. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Good luck. Our next action item is approval of 2018-19 overnight field trip requests. Everybody got their packet? Large packet of requests? Did anybody have any questions on?
I have one.
Yes, yes, sir.
I always ask this, but I feel it's important to make sure that we have an out if there is any reason we don't want somebody year and a half from now to go to France or to go to Spain. Make sure there's in the contract, there's an out. Okay.
For those international trips, they have the option to purchase trip insurance for that type of thing.
Okay,
So that is all involved in that contract that they sign.
okay. Thank you, Stacy.
So each kid would purchase the insurance?
They have the option
They have
to.
the option to, so if they do not, and the trip gets canceled,
Then
they're
they're,
out of luck on the,
well, there's probably, it depends on when it occurs and
Okay.
how much they'll get back. And
Okay.
that's all spelled out for them before they
is.
even
okay,
make the decision.
excellent. That is- Anything else, Mrs.
Yes.
Zink?
On the trip to, the orchestra trip to, Nashville, Tennessee, on the front page it says you're going by car, but really, when you get inside and you start reading the details, it says you're going by bus, so that, just a small detail that you might want to straighten out. It says
Thank you.
Method of transportation, it really is bus. Way too many students to take cars, I think.
Anything else?
Nice trips are planned, as per usual. Very, very meaningful trips.
I'm looking for her to make sure that she,
Oh, okay.
Well,
yes, yes, ma'am.
Well, I just would like to say that I went with was it South High School one time? We went to Spain, and it was phenomenally well organized by our district. These kids really, really got their money's worth. Fabulous experience.
We're gonna be looking for a motion on the field trips.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the overnight field trips as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mrs. Roddy. Any further discussion? I have a comment. This goes very smoothly, as they used to not go this smoothly, but that's, the process is greatly improved. With the forms and the signatures and, yes,
Yeah.
very good.
Stacy.
Fantastic. Alrighty, if there's nothing else, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0 in favor. Thank you very much. Alrighty, that brings to a close our action items. Next up on the agenda is information items. And the first one up would be referendum update.
So we have not yet presented the referendum scope at the Teaching and Learning Committee. And as with any major work done at schools, it's going to have an impact on the daily operations of the school. And just to give the committee and those watching, if it's a different audience that normally watches our board, just a little bit of a perspective on the work that's been done. Because this is the Teaching and Learning Committee and not the Finance and Facilities Committee, I will go quickly through the financial slides, but I'll pay attention to kind of the impact slides as we go through. I've asked that Stacy control the computer so that we're not changing and dealing with any potential technical difficulties. So if you'd like to advance. Just for everybody's scope and understanding, we are a very large district. We've got 26 school buildings, 2.4 million square feet. And we very much appreciate the partnership that we've had with our community, the support that we've had from our community members, and that's very evident in just even the budget discussion that happened last month at the board meeting, at the budget hearing. If you'd like to go ahead. Just to give everybody a perspective, the referendum or the facilities discussion has been going on for 3 years now. So for the Board of Ed, 3 years ago, you directed by the Finance and Facilities Committee administration to do a facilities study. It was comprehensive in scope. I believe it's 1,000 pages long. And that has evolved then to help form the facilities conversations that we've had today. Last year, we did a community survey, and we found that 58% of the community, or of the respondents, I shouldn't say the community, of those that responded, were in support of us investing through a referendum in our current buildings. So here's a bit of financial background, and we'll go through this quickly. Just so everybody knows that the district's mill rate has fallen over the last decade. So while costs have continued to rise, our mill rate has fallen from $9.58 to $8.21. We are well below the state average in cost per pupil. Just a little bit of perspective on that. The state average per pupil expenditure is $12,785. The school district of Waukesha spends $11,579 per pupil. So if you take that $1,206 and you multiply over the approximately 13,000 students we have, we're spending $15.6 million less. So we would have to add $15.6 million in spending to equal just the state average. And in the next couple of slides, I'll show you how that's going, how that has impacted us. We also have $3.2 million in outstanding debt, and we project to be debt-free by 2021. So if you'd like to move forward here, you can see the yellow bar there. This is the annual report. This comes from the Taxpayers Alliance, so these aren't numbers that are collected by the school district, but rather by the Independent Taxpayers Alliance. You can see where we fall within the scope of Waukesha County. It goes Waukesha, Mukwonago, and Hamilton on the lower spending end. Hamilton did pass a referendum last year, so you would see that they would move ahead of us if you were to see this chart for 18-19. You can see, based off of mill rate, where we're at in comparison to the state average, which is $9.79. We're down at $8.21, and I think through the Finance and Facilities Committee, you've heard some projections that we would be in and around the $8 mark this year. The annual or the cost per pupil for the largest districts, again, we, as a larger district, it can be argued that we have some economies of scale because we're bigger. We've got one superintendent overseeing all of our facilities. We're a smaller school district. There may be a larger impact. You can see where the large district averages. So these are, Madison, Milwaukee, Racine. These are our like comparisons in the state based off of the size of our community plus the size of our district. You can see that in Waukesha, we are the lowest spending large district in the state. Yep. No problem. And then based off the large districts, this is our mill rate comparison. So again, we're the lowest taxing as well. You can see that over our tax history, over the last 18 years, it trends downward. And again, this chart, if you go back, we're at our lowest point, our lowest mill rate in the past decade. And you can see that up here on the chart. Here's our debt chart. You can see where Waukesha is at in comparison to Oconomowoc, Elmbrook. Just for a matter of perspective, we are anywhere from 2 to 4 times the size of the districts that you see on this chart. So We're doing very well when it comes down to our budget. And so the question, and I'm not going to read this to you, but this is posted on our website. You can see in relative detail the referendum question that will be on the ballot on November 6th. And this referendum question gives us a scope by which we can work with the dollars that we're requesting from the community. So as it was written up there, that would be word for word what you would see on your ballot. Why now? What's the rationale for going to a project like this now? Again, we've been 3 years of looking at master planning. We want to continue to improve our district facilities. Our board has taken the position that we want to pay off existing debt before we acquire new debt. We are in a strong financial position, and I know that Darren and Todd have spoken to this at the FNF and at the board committee, and we've been able to see that growth over time. Interest rates remain low, but then the other factor that we begin to see, and you may see this as you do work on your home or have done work on your home over the past number of years, costs continue to rise due to inflation. So the cost of construction continues to go up. The need. We've broken the needs down into 3 areas: safety and security, capital maintenance, and building and classroom and ADA improvements. And as you go forward, safety and security, we focused on 6 areas up on the slide here, but there's 17 areas that we've put together that have helped us identify some targets of our work. And you can see the secure entry sequence, and we'll go through that a little bit later with visitor check-in at the office reception areas that are secured by doors, building segmentations, electronic locking systems, classroom door security, and then enhanced classroom communications. These were big focus for the team as we've gone through the work. Majority of our schools were built between 1950 and 1975. The district has done an excellent job of maintaining facilities along the way, but eventually you get to that point where you've got to make a big reinvestment in your schools. And the other part of this is, if you were to go forward, the ADA. We've got at a number of our schools, particularly at the middle level, toilet rooms are not ADA compatible. They were built before the Americans with Disabilities Act was authorized. Butler, a 3-story school, does not have an elevator, which has an impact not only on the path that students may follow from elementary through high school, but it does impact kids who may be involved with soccer or basketball or football, and at the beginning of the school year they break their legs. Staff member may need surgery. They have to navigate those stairs with crutches instead of being able to go to an elevator. Handrails and hand guards are in need of replacements. We're also looking to invest in classroom updates to support hands-on learning and student collaboration, cafeteria improvements at the middle school. If you've been to South High School or North High School, you've seen some of the improvements in the kitchen and the servery areas. Those same type of improvements are needed at our middle schools as well. And then library modifications to better support today's students. I mean, we don't refer to libraries as libraries anymore. They're media centers, they're information media centers. So really making that shift in space to better meet the needs of instruction and students today. So the solution to this project, in front of you, you have a copy of the fact sheet, and many of you have seen it. And for those in the audience, you can see them all along our walls, and there's some handouts on the side there. The fact sheet is an attempt to break down 3 years of work into a 1-page document. And in this, you can see what's going to happen at our elementary levels, at our high school levels, at our middle school levels. Everything from capital maintenance, safety and security, and then the ADA and classroom type improvements. One of the big areas of focus at elementary and the STEM schools is improving the security of the main entrances, creating a secure entrance sequence, adding lockable interior doors to partition off our schools, adding security cameras around our buildings so that we can better monitor what's going on, improved communication systems, and improved door locking systems. And one of the things that I'd like to add here is that we all have secure entrances at our schools. The secure entrance, everybody who visits our schools has to be buzzed into the school. And our office staff requests, who you are and why are you here. And so we're able to stop them. But where we come short as a district is once you're buzzed into the school, you really have free access to the entire building. North High School has a secure entrance area. So if you can picture that big foyer at North, that is a secure entrance. Banting Elementary School now, based off of some of the work we did there this summer, has a secure entranceway. 2 locations out of 26, and so we feel that we've got to invest there. Capital maintenance at the elementary and the STEM schools replace, prioritize exterior building and site components, so asphalt roofs, windows, et cetera. Again, within the natural cycle of these buildings, you know, you get to the point where you've got to do a big investment
That's
into the
right.
parking lot or into the roof. And those investments tend to go beyond what is your annual capital maintenance budget. Here's a visual of a secure entrance sequence. And so if you were to look at the glass picture down in the lower left, you can see visibility for the reception. So you can see the doors are all glass. You can see through there, you know, you can see into the office, you can see into the foyer, and you can see outside. If you look at the image on the right, starting from by the vestibule, you can see the pathway in blue that a person would have to take getting into this school. And this is what our ultimate goal is to get somebody into a secure vestibule, buzz them into the office, do the Raptor background check on them, get the background check, and then buzz them into the school so that you can contain everybody who comes into your school during the school day. You see the yellow dashed lines, that would be the ideal line of sight for the principal or for the building assistant, so that they could see the people who are outside and they could also see the people who are being buzzed into the office. Segmentation, in the event that there was an emergency, if there was an intruder into the school, you'd like to be able to lock down segments of the school so that you can contain that person. What I'd add here, though, is that the idea of the intruder, while we plan for that, the more likely scenario, and one that our principals and our district office staff, we get called all the time on, it's generally the custody type situations where you have a parent or a family member who's indicating that they should be picking up a child, but you have no record of it in your system. By having the building segmentation, we are able to better contain the students in the school, so that we don't have somebody getting past the office down the hallways and such. This does aid us in that. Middle schools, if you look at the fact sheet, and as you've reviewed our materials and listened to these presentations, the largest investment of this proposed referendum is into our middle levels. We look to create secure main entrances. We'll just look at some pictures of that in a minute. Add lockable interior doors, so again, look at building segmentation, the security cameras. You'll see the proposed traffic pattern at Butler Middle School, and then replacing locks and intercom systems and doors and door hardware. The capital maintenance, again, our middle schools, I think that Horning Middle School was the newest middle school in 1972, if my memory is serving me correctly. I think that Butler goes to the early 60s. A lot of the features at those schools are original to the building, so while we have done HVAC work and plumbing and everything like that, it's time to go in and take a look at the guts of the building. Classroom and ADA improvements. Again, the Americans with Disabilities Act is approximately 30 years old, going on 30 years old now. All of our middle schools were built well before the ADA, and we do have some areas to upgrade. The interesting note is next year in 2019, Les Paul turns 100 years old. The central buildings turn 100 years old. But due to the work that the district did in the early 90s there, that building is actually our most ADA compliant of our 3 middle school locations. So we're also looking to renovate existing classrooms and portions of the building, some lab spaces and such, provide fire protection to the buildings if the scope is large enough, renovate the libraries and media centers, and renovating existing administrative offices into classrooms. At each of our middle schools, we're fortunate that we have the conversation about how do we accommodate all the kids. Butler is our largest middle school. Les Paul and Horning are nearly the same size. And really creating, by doing some of the work that we're proposing, we'd be able to add some classroom space at those locations. Butler Middle School, again, this would be the area, the school with the most scope, the most work. You can see in the yellow box there that there would be a proposed addition to the building on the middle level of Butler. It would be an office addition. On the lower level, it would be storage and classrooms. And then that box right in the middle of the building would be a secure entranceway into the building that would house the elevator. You can see an expanded parking lot, the parent and visitor parking area. That would provide a traffic loop to get people off of Michigan. And then you can see the drive that would go through the property where buses would unload kids, and getting them off of the streets around the building. One, you'd improve traffic congestion there in the morning. If you've ever been through this area in the morning or in the afternoon, it can get pretty busy. We'd be providing ample staff parking, and we'd also be able to maintain a nice level of green space at the middle school, for phy ed and recesses and such. This is the project a little bit more in detail, and again, without going too far into it, the easiest way for me to explain this is the areas that you see up there in green are more expensive renovations. They would be like renovating your kitchen or your bathroom at your home. It involves water and gas lines and more expensive projects. The light blue on the page there, on the picture there, would be the cheapest, and the darker blue would be a little bit more expensive. So anything from paint and ceiling tile and carpeting and flooring, all the way to a little bit more in-depth renovations that would involve some fixture changes and such. That would be the full scope there. If you went ahead, you can see the additional floors then at. It's important to note that in this project, we would be, if you can see up where you see the classrooms, so you'll see two adjacent classrooms. What we're proposing doing in this to help enhance the house concept that these schools have is to open some of these middle walls up so that you can do a little bit more dynamic classroom work, where you can do some flexible groupings with kids, where you can allow for a little bit more mobility with students while also maintaining a level of security because that hallway is locked down. Again, the more detailed, more expensive renovation in the middle of the building where you see some of the science classrooms and such. And then this would be the second floor or the third floor, just depending on how you are following along with Butler. You can see an area of note in number 10. If you go back a slide, Stacy, please. You can see where the cafeteria is. The cafeteria right now does not have a lot of natural light in it. When you go forward a slide now, you can see where those two green boxes are. We'd be proposing the addition of some skylight in there to bring natural light into the school, just so you're understanding what those are. With this project, currently, you can see where that light yellow kind of odd-shaped figure is on there. That would be where, this is the floor above where the offices would be. The current offices at Butler are in that bank of classrooms that are on the right, that green on the right, where you can see a lot of white dashed lines. This would be the addition of 4 classroom spaces at Butler, which, if you remember back to when we set the open enrollment numbers, we close Butler every year because of the footprint. There are a lot of students at Butler, over 900 kids. We need to create some additional classroom space there as well. Horning Middle School, as we've commented at all of our presentations, the architects of Horning and Butler did a really good job of not identifying a front of the building. Their boxes, it's kind of a horse apiece. Where do you go? If you remember the Butler drawing, you walk up to the building, they've got a little bit of an awning off of Michigan where you would look at that as the architectural front of the building. However, you get buzzed into the building off of Hine on what would be the south side of the building. So what we're trying to do is create that front of the building, and you can see where we're proposing that in that small yellow box at the bottom of this drawing. The Horning addition would be a relatively small addition. If you go ahead and move that. The building now has rotated so that you can see the box is still in the same place on the building, but the building turned. That's where we'd be creating the secure entrance to Horning. It's important that we build that there because, again, we want to identify the front of the school, but we also want to ensure that we can control the flow of traffic during the day. On this floor, the office space at Horning is by the number 2. So that's currently where the offices are. If this project goes through, the offices would be moved to be adjacent to that secure entranceway, again, so you can create that secure path. The current office space would then become classroom spaces. Again, you can see the level of renovation. Gray means that we are not touching it, not that it hasn't been touched in the past few years, or that it's not up to speed, but it's just not going to be addressed within the scope of this work. You can see this on the second floor of Horning as well. Again, in the middle there, we're talking about some more heavy, expensive renovations, doing some work in and around the library space, the media center. You can see the dashed lines that are in there right now. That does create some just odd-shaped walls within the building. There's a lot of angles in the Horning library, and we hope that within the scope of this project, we're actually able to create additional space in there by just doing a more efficient job by placing walls. The kitchen and cafeteria would also receive renovation in this project. Les Paul, again, it's our oldest school in the district. And Stacy, if you could advance one slide, please. 2 slides, please. There we go. You can see that the vast majority of the work at Les Paul is in those yellow boxes where we would be completely demoing the current cafeteria, building a new cafeteria space where kids can eat. Currently, if you are a student who has accessibility issues, so if you're in a wheelchair, there's one way that's accessible into the cafeteria. But in the event of any major disaster, your only way out of that cafeteria is to come back the way you came. So in the instance of a fire, you can't get out of there really easy. So what we're looking to do is to create a cafeteria that is at grade, that provides entrances and exits for many students. We would be updating the kitchen space. If you've ever been at the Les Paul cafeteria, it is a unique location. The kitchen is very, very small, so we'd be proposing doing an upgrade there. You can see that between the cafeteria, the number 1 and number 2, there's a block of space there. That would be a hallway and then some bathrooms, some toilet room facilities for kids. And then number 2 is a new main office area where we would be able to create that secure entranceway into the school. Currently, when you go into Les Paul, just below the text up there, the print up there that says secure entry, you get buzzed into Les Paul and you have access right or left to the entire school. There's no way to really do a good job of controlling it. And that main hallway there is it's kind of the lifeline of the school. It's how you get from one building to the next and how you get into the office. And then the big proposed change would be some conference space and additional student services space at Les Paul. They do not have a good conference room for meetings. You can see that there's some locker room improvements in number 6 and toilet room improvements. If you advance, please. And the same thing then would go on the second floor. And if you advance again up to the 3rd floor, you can see that there's some toilet room improvements there. High schools, we're looking to create a secure main entrance and adjacent administrative offices at South. And we'll show you those in a minute. Improve the secure main entrance at West. If you can imagine how you get into West right now, you go through that nice main entrance there. They've got a nice reception desk. To the left, you would see student services. To the right, you would be able to see the main offices. What we would be doing is creating a nice bank of doors and glass to secure that foyer as you walked in. So again, you could control the pattern of individuals coming into the school. Add lockable interior doors to partition off the schools. Again, when you get into our high schools, there is not a lot of segmentation that currently exists, and we would be looking to add that there. Add lockable interior door, install additional security cameras, improve the drop-off and pickup pattern at South, and we'll show you that. It's important to note, and again, I mentioned it earlier, that North does have a secure vestibule. That big foyer when you walk in, that can be locked down. There's 2 actually areas where you could have a visitor check-in. One of those areas is behind glass. The other area is at that nice reception desk that they put in. Capital maintenance, again, talking about site components, asphalt roofs and windows, expanding air conditioning to the auditorium and remaining classrooms at South. We have heard from our community, we've heard from our parents, we've heard from our staff that there is a need to do some climate control at South. There was some talk about doing that in the field house, but that is not included in the project due to cost and then also due to the use of the field house. Continuing to do classroom and ADA improvements. particularly at South. It is our oldest high school, and it has, while it's been well-maintained, some of those upgrades have not happened there. Building a science lab addition at South, I'll show you that in one of the drawings. Renovating the existing classrooms and portions of the building, and renovating the existing administrative offices into classrooms. And so here's the site map. You can see at the top, what would be the north end of the building, the addition of you can kind of see where that short turnaround is in front of that north entrance to the building. We'd be looking at expanding that all the way in front of the school, creating some just, short-term visitor parking there, so that people who were dropping off a lunch, paying a bill, picking up a student, that they would have access there. That yellow box on top is the proposed new main office addition. And the yellow box in the middle of the building would be an updated state-of-the-art science lab. And that's off of that green space that they currently have in their courtyard area. This is that same discussion in greater detail. One of the nice things about this work at South, if you look at the top hallway on the north end of the building, we are providing in that green box the opportunity to expand the engineering academy by a classroom. That is a popular program at South, and it's something that we want to lend a little bit more space to. We have the ability right next to the yellow science lab to add a classroom for the health academy. If we do build this new main office area, the current office areas, which would be on the left side of this drawing in the north corner, those are the offices. Those would be turned into classrooms. We would be particularly focused on adding 2 special education spaces there that would help us with more of the life skills and the independent skills that the students need. This map here is just, again, it's the second floor. You're not seeing a lot of work here. However, you are seeing classrooms that are outlined in blue. And this goes to what we are trying to accomplish with the air conditioning there. Those would be classrooms where air conditioning would be added. So the cost. It's a $60 million referendum question, and this is kind of how the costs break out, where 26% of the referendum would be going to safety and security, 22% to capital maintenance, and 52% to building, classroom, and ADA improvements. One of the things to note about this slide is if we were to bring the same group of people into the room again, or if we were to add people, they may argue that certain things go into a different bucket. Because you're doing safety and security, you had to make these additions across the building, so why aren't you adding that to safety and security? What we tried to do was, in the most conservative description of the project, to place them in the appropriate places. So a secure entrance truly falls under safety and security. Skylights in the library at South, because we're covering the doors, that does not. Somebody may try to make the argument, we just tried to go as straight cost as we could. Go ahead. This is of a particular interest. The board at the F&F committee requested that we look at a 10-year borrow and what would the financing plan be. So you're looking at a 72-cent tax impact on a 10-year borrow. The benefit and the truly unique thing about this is that it saves $13 million in interest charges over the course of the loan, the difference between the 10 and 20-year borrow. Most school districts do a 20-year borrow. I think it's about 85%. Only about 3% of the districts are doing a 10-year borrow on their projects. This is of particular importance to our community. The tax impact, we have $100,000, $200,000, and $300,000 property values listed, and you can see the annual impact as well as the estimated monthly impact. There is a tax calculator on our website now, so you could go in and plug the assessed value of your home. Again, not what you think you could get for it, but the assessed value, what would show up in your tax bill, and you'd be able to see how this project would impact your home. If you were to look at, if we were to add the referendum debt, so say the project is approved, if you were to add the referendum debt, you can see where our school district would fall within the scope of the county. We still would be the 3rd lowest and possibly the 2nd lowest, depending on where it falls with Hamilton. If we go ahead. And so that's really the...
On the 10-year borrow, right?
That is on the 10-year borrow. So all of the financing information is based off of a 10-year borrow. That's what the board has asked us to factor in. So with that, all of our information is on the website. You can go there. There's very good resources for anybody in the community, for any members of the board, any members of our staff. I'll take any questions that you may have.
How do you think the community is responding? I think pretty good. What do you think?
We have had some, we did last week a town hall at South High School.
Yes.
We had some excellent questions and a very engaged audience. We've done a lot of PTO presentations and community groups, and we've gotten a lot of, I would say that we've gotten a lot of good fact-finding type questions at those meetings. There's been a lot of support for it, but again, November 6th is the day that we are putting a lot of effort into.
Mr. Dietz.
I know the district has received well over $1 million through state safety and security grants.
Yes.
Projects listed in your presentation would not be included in any of the money that would be spent through those
Correct.
grants.
And I'm passing around a sheet right now, thank you for your question, that summarizes, it's you saw it in your board packets last week, and it's on our website. It does a nice job of kind of overlaying where the referendum scope is, where the safety grant round 1, safety grant round 2, and then where our operational expenses are. And the kind of the short story of it is we're being very strategic where we use the safety grant dollars so that if the referendum is passed, we wouldn't be going into schools and essentially taking out a recent investment. When you saw those secure entrances at Butler, at Horning, at Les Paul, and at South, if there was a door space that was impacted because we did an improvement at that door, that would be really the only area where you might see that, hey, we put an investment into this door, we put a safety film on the windows, we now have to take that out, or it's no longer needed. But the vast majority, and I feel confident saying 99% of the money that we're getting from the safety grant would not be negatively impacted by this referendum project. The referendum would only enhance what we're doing with the safety.
And then, Joe, have you seen the actual ballot?
I saw a sample ballot where the referendum, where everybody and everything is on it. So everybody who's running for office.
Right, because it's really hidden on the back.
Yep.
I mean, if you don't turn it over, you don't see it.
Right.
I mean, it is what it is, but.
Right, and it is just
for
a
people to
sample
know that.
ballot, so I don't know if they maintain their final form once the.
Right, because I have an absentee ballot.
Okay.
I went that route, and
Okay.
it's on the back, and it was like, okay, I'm looking for this, and I happened to turn it over, and there it was.
Does it say over on the bottom?
I don't recall.
The poll workers announce it.
Okay.
They'll say
so-
it's on 2 sides.
Said it, okay, yep. Okay.
Question.
Well, Joe, I don't think anything that is being suggested is outrageous in any way, shape, or form. We're a huge school district. We
Yeah.
have a lot of buildings, and if we don't continuously maintain them, they'll go down pretty fast, and then try to fix things. The cost would be astronomical,
And
so we
you'll-
need to have ongoing repairs.
And the thing that I would say is that the community and the board have done a very good job of making sure that we've been able to stay on top of those things, operationally from year to year. But every once in a while, and you can kind of think of it with your home, you need to do a new roof. You need a new furnace. You need a new water heater. Those are the big things that it becomes a bit of a challenge when they come up, and that's really where we're at with our middle schools right now. We've done a good job of maintaining, replacing. Glenn Norder and his crew, for all those years, they took care of boilers. They took care of, other systems in the school. But you get to that point where you got to ask the question. We asked that question in the early 2000s, I think in 2000, 2001. We did a big investment at that time. It's 17, 18 years later, and that's why we're coming back.
That's right.
Patrick, you probably know the answer to this, but I think the capital improvement budget for the district is like 1.4 million for 26 sites.
Yes.
Okay,
That's the one, once a year.
right.
Yeah.
Yearly budget.
Doesn't go very far.
No.
No.
Pocket change.
A testament to Glenn Norder.
That's a good review, Joe. Thank you.
Very good.
Good presentation.
Thank you very much.
Very
Yeah.
thorough.
Alrighty, next up on our information items would be our grading update.
Guys aren't even on here.
Welcome. The pleasant surprise. Thought Melissa, Dan would be, I know.
It
you know,
didn't
I
look
gotta
like
be-
Melissa and
Trying to
Dan,
be
does
friendly
it?
and welcoming.
We planned that.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'll take that as a compliment that we're the A team, so.
See up front, guys.
Oh, thanks. We're here before you on behalf of a committee that is formed, and this is our standards-based grading. This team has met, I think, for about the last 4 years or so. Gone down a couple different paths, but it's meet on a regular basis. I know members of this group is very familiar with the Grading for Learning journey, and eventually this team is turned into really defining what the work is, which is standards-based grading. If you want to do the next slide. So the names you see on the screen, like I said, we're just a small group of that. Both Ryan, Dennis, and myself are part of a bigger group of principals and some district leaders on there. So like I said, we meet consistently monthly, talk about all things grading and assessment, and really have come away with some really good outcomes. And to help us kind of frame the work, this group operates off of a theory of action. Next slide, there you go. There's a simple if-then statement in terms of the work. So if you see the acronym for SAIL in the school district of Waukesha, our improvement processes, it really mirrors really well with that. So student advancement and learning, knowing that if us as SW leaders, teachers, parents, and students understand the purpose of standards-based grading by systematically communicating, collaborating, and reflecting on standards-based grading best practice, expectations around feedback, then students, families, teachers, and leaders will understand and be able to effectively articulate standards-based grading. So really that's the work that helps guide us. The next slide that you'll see talks a little bit about, shows really and I think this group, this T&L group has seen these. These are our performance indicators. On the left you see, did I look the wrong way? So it looks like, high school's on the left, middle school's on the right. The colors are exactly the same. So this is what our community, our students have seen as a communication tool, and really the course. I'm really proud of my 10 years in the district. We've really gone down a path of communication. There's been a lot of work by a lot of different people, and really proud of this work. So this is just a reflection image of some of the work that's taken place.
For the elementary level, you'll see that we have elementary continuums, and that's really shared out with parents at least a minimum of twice a year at conferences. But the real power is that even students can now own their learning, and they can progress along and monitor how they're doing in conjunction with the teachers. And it really helps with the feedback cycle, because feedback is where we really show how we're progressing through. And then there's the elementary rubric that we use for a report card. And that also shows that there's not like a final destination in your learning, but there's always an ongoing process. And that's something that a lot of parents are really appreciating. I know a lot of educators are also appreciating that as well. And then we also on Blackboards where we house all of our resources, and all educators have access to this just by going in through their personal login or by the standard one that is established for the school district of Waukesha, where they can access the purpose behind what we're doing, why standards-based grading is important for us to continue to use in our district.
So the team has been doing work for the past couple of years. Prior to that, a ton of work was done, building up to the last couple of years where we've implemented more consistently. And some of that, the role of this team was to go into that work and clean it up, make it up to today's dates, look at what really some of the work we've already done that's embedded, and we don't need to really go back and reflect on that anymore, but keep some of the resources in place to help us go a little bit deeper, or to help new people when they come on board, have a place to go and learn and have those resources. So Dennis talked about the Blackboard portion of resources. Up here in Blackboard as well is a TDP course that was created where it really is a great deep dive as a resource. So you can go in there and you can personalize it. On the left-hand side, you can see some different elements. It's a little bit hard to see. You can go into the fundamentals tab. You can go into designing student assessments or using assessments in instruction. You can look at a feedback portion. It's really for a variety of individuals. If you're a new teacher to the district, a new principal, you can go here and go through this. If you're a veteran, you can go back in and you can see some of the different levels you may want to learn a little bit more about and review, and you can really customize this. The way to enroll in that, this is something we sent out to all of our principals in a WebEx. This team did to provide this resource. This resource is offered through Summer Institute and will continue to be brought up through our WebExes as a really good place to go to personalize some learning. So it's an as-needed basis based on the building and the individual. Other resources and part of the work that we've done is gone onto our district's website to make sure that we have not so many resources. There was a time where things were created and put out there. Now we've scaled that back, and one of the things that we've created is a standards-based grading handbook that really is the key to all of the work we've done over the past, going on around 8 to 10 years. And it is accessible through our website. You can go on the left-hand side here, select your grade and your level. You can see some of the things we've shared with you. It's a place for parents to go, for any educators to go. It's another place to go and find some of those resources as well. So we have cleaned that up also. And when we get into the grading portion, we talk about Infinite Campus. As we implement this in the classroom, and we look at that grade book that provides the reporting portion of our grading, we want that to report the way it's meant to, so parents can have a great understanding of what their kids are doing, what they know and are able to do, which goes along with our standards-based grading philosophy. And sometimes as educators and principals, we need a little place to go to find out how we can solve some problems, set up our grade books correctly. We have leaders in our buildings that generally do that, but it's a great place to help answer some of those individual questions at the building level. So that's kind of a collaboration of what we've done as a group, provided resources to our principals, to our teachers, to use as they see fit. So, questions for us?
Bugger.
Some of us were here in the days of grading for learning, and was very uncomfortable, right? And what I'm trying to really just get to the root of what you're talking about here. This, you really have tried to clean up, continue the cleaning up of that situation so we get parents to understand what's going on, remove some of the confusion, deal a little bit with the fact that it's not 1, 2, 3, 4 now, it's back to A, B, C, D, F and stuff like that. So in those days, we were getting a lot of discord from families. What's the feeling today from the people out there, not in here, this room, but people out there?
So I'll speak for the high school level, which was probably a primary source of
Yes.
some of the discord. And I was fortunate enough to run some parent subgroups where we went through a lot of that discord. And it's really gone away. It's truly an individual basis. Because we've tightened things up and we've been very clear with our communication, part of our theory of action to communicate really well. Part of that, I think, in changing our grading scale that we shared with you here today at the high school level, just simplified it for people. And through that, we are still able to accomplish our philosophy and do all the things we need to do. It just takes the edge off of what people, I think, previously came from. And we still operate in the same way, and it really has been a non-issue, and we've been able to do great things with grading.
Hearing that is very positive, at least to myself, and you were here then, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
And Barbara, you know, and you know, we don't, I'd rather have another root canal. I mean, I appreciate the fact, if it's not an issue, you know, it's a non-issue, or whatever words you use, that's a good feeling to me right now.
One of the key pieces that we've done, which is also on our website at the high school level, a couple years ago, we brought in, one of the big arguments was, what does this mean for college and grades and
Yes.
test scores? We had an admissions panel where we had 10 colleges in the area. That video is available for all of you, for all of our community to go and check it out, even though it's a couple years old. And we put those questions up there that were some of those key questions of what does this really mean for, if we grade this way, what do colleges do? What do they see? Will it be a barrier to my son or daughter in comparison to other schools and other districts with the way we grade?
Yeah, I remember that being an issue.
And those panel members answered all those questions very well, very clear and very explicitly. We had 90% of the colleges our district attends. That's hypothetical,
Yeah.
but many of those colleges. And Marquette was here, MSOE was here, Oshkosh, Whitewater, UW was here. So we had all those schools kind of debunking maybe some of the concerns.
So we are in concert with what they'd like to see.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I would just add, I think we're in a good place with communication, but in the end, the work that we're doing in Waukesha is grounded in really good practice.
Yeah.
So that hasn't changed. That's going to be there, and we're on the right trajectory with that work. So whether we call it AB, or 4321, it's grounded in the most current research, and we're doing some innovative things with our feedback and reporting and grading. So it's, I guess, know that you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, from my perspective.
Thank you, Bob.
I just think it's awesome what a grade represents today versus what it used to represent. It's just amazing that if a parent looks into what that letter grade or what that number grade represents, it's pretty inclusive. Things that one would not even consider in a grade. So I think it's incredible what we're doing as far as, grading what kids are actually doing, not just taking a test.
Mrs. Roddy?
Yes, I like that I have the perspective of learning and seeing things at this level, but also from the actual classroom level with my children. And I think when we started our school years, we were just in the tail end of the grading for learning. And I sat on the superintendent's advisory committee with the parents. And that was what the discussion that was just had was, this is not what we're used to. This is, we're used to the ABCs, the one, and I think coming in at the early years, we were first grade, I think second grade maybe at most, because it was all new, this wasn't scary to, to our home. We were used to it, but I'm very glad to hear, because you asked the same question that I had was, our family's more accepting of this now, so I'm glad to hear that. And then those learning continuums that we do get, basically, as you said, I very much appreciate those, because when we work with our kids at home, I know what's coming next, or I can say, okay, I feel like, from us at home, we see that she's mastering this. What's next? How can we help her going into next year or over the summertime? And the teachers will give, okay, this website here, this project there. And I hope that other parents are looking at that, but and in these really early years that my family's in, I very much like having that tool in my hand. So thank you.
We just want to make sure that parents are a part of the process, because that's the most important piece for us as well, as a carryover from what we do on a day-to-day basis at school.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, our next informational item, CERTS framework.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Good. I just wanted to share with you tonight some information about some training that we're providing for our special educators who work with students who have been identified with autism. As you know, autism has a rapidly increased rate of identification. As of April, the CDC said it's 1 in 59 children. And we do see that in our schools. And this is a fairly new area of disability. It was first identified around 100 years ago. So unlike some other disability areas, the research is pretty recent and not an accumulation of more than 100 years. We have tried a variety of strategies over time that come with an evidence base to them, and we're at the point where the most valuable framework we can use is called CERTS. That's SCERTS. It's an acronym. It stands for Social Communication, emotional regulation, and transactional supports. And this is a framework that pulls together the evidence-based practices that have been in place, organizes them in a way that gives us a beautiful design to observation and assessment and intervention practices with students. The CERTS model has been around for about 12 years, and we've trained people over the course of those 12 years. I was trained probably 11 or 12 years ago. In the last 3 years, we have really increased our training in this area. We've had about 80 staff members in the last 3 years go through the Summer CERTS Academy offered by CISA 1. And one of the authors of the CERTS model comes here to Waukesha for a 3-day in-service, and she's extremely well received. She's a speech pathologist, she's very practical, she's very well spoken, and people benefit a great deal from that training. I recently met with about 20 of the educators who've recently been trained and asked them, what's the most important thing you have learned from your CERTS training and applying it in your practice? And they gave me a variety of points, but most importantly, they unanimously agreed that learning to be an observer was the most valuable thing that they gained from this. Children with autism have a different neurological makeup, and so what they do is very unpredictable to us who are neurotypical. And learning to observe small behaviors, small things such as eye gaze, makes a huge difference in being able to identify what the child is saying non-verbally. So the staff felt that was the most important thing to take away. There's a detailed parent interview involved in a CERTS assessment, and that really puts value on what the parents have been through from birth till the child comes to us at 3 or 4 or sometime in their early childhood. And it really gives the parent an opportunity to share with us what works, even if it doesn't work well, and what doesn't work, and that really gives them a good voice and they feel heard in participating in the child's education. Our speech pathologists participate in the CERTS training, but many of our staff don't have that kind of language background to know that if a child's nonverbal, you're going to be looking for pre-language skills as the evidence of the child communicating to you. And that valuable information serves them well. I also asked the staff, what can we do for you moving forward to keep building your skills, to keep incorporating your practice? And they asked for time to collaborate. We've done it in the past. We've provided a course, a semester course where teachers who are working with students using the CERTS model come together and practice their skills using videos we have on file to practice observation, as well as to share their success stories and also get some problem-solving help from other staff in the group. We intend to continue moving forward with that, providing that semester course second semester this year, and then continuing to provide the summer training for our staff as we move forward next summer. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions?
I'd like to know some of the positive outcomes that you've observed as a result of this.
Sure. What we find is that if you don't know the power of a child's eye gaze, you don't know what they're doing when they're trying to gain your joint attention. So being able to affirm for a child that when you see them looking at the bottle of bubbles, you know they're asking for it. And being reinforced immediately for that attempt to communicate using eye gaze has been very powerful in moving the child forward to more successful, less stressful communication, rather than I'm looking at it, you're not getting it, I'm looking at it, you're not getting it, I'm getting anxious, I'm squealing, and you try 17 things and finally you get it right, and that's failed communication. So when we learn to be a good observer of the child's attempts, that's very valuable. Symbol use is an important part of the early learning to talk for a child with autism, using pictures to point to or to exchange in order to be understood or to express yourself. And our staff will tell you that they've learned a great deal about not just single word communication, but how to encourage a child to learn to put together 2 words, 3 words, 4 words, to not only request, but to express opinion. that's a couple of good strategies.
Great. Thank you.
Else? Well,
Going, Patty, this is
Yep.
great stuff.
it's fantastic
Thank you, I
stuff.
agree.
Meeting the needs of kids that so much need to be having their needs met. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next information item would be our gifted and talented update. Done by Sheriff Thiede.
Good
Hi.
evening. Hi. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an update. Well, it's only my second year in this role, so I thought I've never talked to you about gifted and talented, but I also don't know how often that program has been before this committee. So just as a little bit of background, we have GT advocates in all of our buildings. It's usually one of the teachers, and they're assigned as the advocate, and what they do is they assist in some PD for teachers within their building to help identify gifted students, and then also to help with different strategies for differentiation, so we're meeting the needs of all of our learners. And they're an advocate and a conduit to parents as well. So in general, every school has an advocate, and then we also have a GT coordinator who oversees, and then we have some assessors who help assess students who've been identified. So as a whole, that's what the program looks like.
That GT person, though, doesn't teach a regular classroom, does he or
Correct,
she?
we don't do
Okay.
any, well, our GT coordinator is an additional job for her. It's Marisa Nathan, and she is a coach at South. So specifically though, for this update, we've made some changes to identification for grades K2. Instead of, how you get identified is you need to have 2 basically letters of recommendation in addition to several data points. And then from there, you will go on and receive some testing to get identified and be labeled gifted and talented. So instead of doing that with our students in grades K through 2, we would simply pull students through data points such as their PALS or MAPS testing that they're already taking into what we're calling a talent pool. So the top, if they're in the 97th percentile or higher in whatever their grade level appropriate testing that they're already taking, they'd be put into a talent pool. Their teachers would know their scores because we have teachers working with data already, so they'd understand the scores and needs of these students. And then we would monitor their progress over time, and then ultimately look, if needed, for an identification as they're getting into 3rd grade. One main reason, there's a couple main reasons why we want to make this change and have made this change is because in general, we're still disproportionate with our identification of gifted and talented students. We're still mainly identifying white males. One piece that this talent pool will help with, students who are coming to us already literate and already have been in preschool and doing some of these pieces, oftentimes stand out in those early years. And in our community right now, oftentimes are our young male boys who are well-behaved or females, white females coming in. So to help even that and close that gap a little bit, well, then they rise to the top and they get identified right away with their teachers and they get the label on them right away. So to even that playing field, we want the talent pool, because also what happens with the younger grades is those kids even out. So when you come in kindergarten seeming very literate, by 1st and 2nd grade you've even out, but it's possible that we've already identified and labeled you as a kindergarten or 1st grader. And as a district, as a whole, we're not very good then at taking labels off. So when they audit at 3rd grade to say you are no longer gifted, we often don't remove that label. And the other piece too, which makes this very easy, is with our personalization that we have going on with iPads, we do our differentiated instruction right in the classroom. We have so many resources right now to meet the needs of all of our learners. Even when they're identified as gifted, they're being met right in the classroom. So that also, the need for that label is much, not as great in the younger years. So I wanted to just give everyone an update with that shift we're making in programming as we're trying to look holistically at how we're serving our students.
Is there any questions? Mr. Baumgart?
Sure. This is, Sharon, this is another issue that over the years we used to have lots of complaining from parents about. And it dawned on me when you started presenting here that we haven't heard much about it for a few years. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's because truly with the shift that we've been making to personalized learning with how we're able to meet students' needs.
Okay.
I mean, you hear from Rose and Dan about the different apps that they have for math and how we're able to just level them right there in their classroom
Okay.
with their peers. I think has made a huge impact in how we're able to serve our gifted students, right with their same age peers.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Sharon, how do you feel, I know we don't have this, but how do you feel about each building having a gifted and talented classroom where all gifted and talented students would be included? I think it's exclusive of having kids be in normal grade level classrooms. What do you think of, some schools have that.
I think it is exclusive. I think that we would want them with their same age
Right.
peers, receiving, they're learning all social cues and a lot of the nonverbal and social emotional interaction within their classroom. So as much as we can serve students within their general population, that's what we would want to do.
I would agree. I'm not so sure that all parents of gifted and talented students agree with that, but, I think that's the best way to go with kids, as you said.
And everything is case by case as well. So of course, there are some extreme circumstances, and so we would take those into consideration and provide programming accordingly.
Of course.
But for the masses, they should be with their peers and differentiated and programmed within their classroom, still meeting their educational and academic needs.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Alrighty, that brings to a close our information items. Next up is discussion items. First one up is AP Environmental Science course. Dan is back.
I'm back.
Promised us he would be.
Yes, he did. Appreciate that. Man of his word.
And come back next. I'm open. All right,
Yes.
so let's see here. Get back up. Some, presentations. There we go. So good evening. Ellie, Mary, and I are back as we promised from the first day of school and provide an update on our journey into AP Environmental Science. Last month, we talked a little bit about what is an AP Environmental Science, the why, and some of the concepts. And today, we want to give the board insight and a glimpse around what the course is going to look like, sound like, feel like, from the perspective of the students. So we will provide a little bit of context for that, and then open up for discussions, ask questions, and then we'll come back in November for the formal action item and ask for approval. So let's couch this back into what we're talking about. So last month we talked about one aspect of creating an AP Environmental Science course, and the fact that it's going to be an advanced placement course adds to our student achievement benchmarks about creating opportunities and access for rigorous course offerings. And you also heard last month a little update on advanced placement as a whole. So currently we have 21 AP course offerings. Hopefully it'll go up by one in the next month here. And that couches us right in the middle of surrounding school districts. So there's roughly 6 districts that in the surrounding area that offer more than 21, and 7 districts that offer either 21 or less around us. You couch that by enrollment size. You take the 2 districts larger than us and the 2 districts smaller than us, and we offer more AP options than any of them. So we're in a very competitive market, and we're opening up that access for our students. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary to talk a little bit about the framework around the AP Environmental Science course. So these would be the units that would be taught over the course of a year.
Yeah, so our first unit we would be covering would be about 2 weeks, and it'd be human sustainability overview. So basically, why do we have environmental problems? What are the principles of sustainability, and what's the impact of those? Then we would spend a much longer time, 11 weeks, on science and ecological principles and more on sustainability. What role do we have as humans and other species in sustaining an ecosystem? And then get into sustaining biodiversity. Should humans be sustaining biodiversity? The pros and cons of that, getting involved. And then sustaining natural resources, what's the best way to go about doing that, and sustaining environmental quality, the risks, the regulations of doing that, and then after the AP exam, we would do a culminating project on research.
So one thing to kind of remember is that when we talk about AP courses, we may have 36 weeks in a school year, but with the AP exam being in early May, you're taking the 5 units and compacting that into 30 weeks. And so a long-term project that would be started day one and then culminating in that last 6 weeks is this idea of a research project. So I'll let Ellie add to that, and then to also talk about what it might feel like to a student who's taking an AP Environmental Science course.
So in general, with each of the themes that Mary talked about, students would have readings, and that could be current events that they're reading about, class activities and labs. To me, I think the labs are the biggest part of it because they're getting that hands-on kind of action research experience in conjunction with being able to go to Retz or EB Shirts, or the Prairie Springs is the Carroll one. And I know Dan just recently talked to Camp Whitcomb, is that?
Camp Whitcomb Mason.
Mason, they're super excited about partnering with us to getting out into the community, water treatment center, going to the recycling places. For me, I think students are going to feel really included in their community and understand that they have an impact on the community, and then therefore hopefully will go out into the community and make good decisions, be leaders about those things.
We had the opportunity tonight, just prior to the board meeting, to have our first district curriculum council where we invite community members in, and this was one of the topics that was talked about, and the feedback that we got in terms of that last piece of going out into the community and that action research component gave us some really good ideas, even to the point of like, what are some possible outcomes that students might do. So it could take on the form of something that happens locally in a school, or even in the school district, or in the community. And that really speaks to like this course, unlike other science courses. I taught physics and AP physics, and when students think of science, they think of lots of theory and some equations, and so hopefully you're getting the sense that this is beyond that. It's taking all of that and applying it to current events and the world around us, and that's by design. So if it's gonna be different than what we think of as science courses, then it's gonna sound different. And so the classroom experience is not just in the classroom. So it's in the school and it's outdoors. It is inviting and going out and bringing in local, county, and state speakers to talk about the complex systems that we have when we talk about recycling and our environment, and water levels in lakes when we have flooding happening. And so the discussions that would happen in each of the units would be based on not only a College Board approved curriculum that leads to the AP exam. That has to be in place in order for the AP moniker to be used. But this is also talking about, now what do we do about it in our local context? And then what would it be like if, I used to live in another state, and so what might it change if I moved back there? The last bullet is the key to the whole thing. It's really this idea that this course really takes learning into action. So how do we carry that theme? And so all the pictures that you see are hopefully things that we envisioned in our conversations around what would be happening in there, from being out at a recycling center, having those debates, to presenting to organizations. And then ultimately letting the students come together around a passion project of theirs and taking it to its endpoint. And so we're going to end tonight and open it up for discussions with where we started the discussion last month, which is why environmental science. So our whys haven't changed. It's really, we live in a world that has complex systems, and sometimes we've created our own situations, and so we also have the keys and the knowledge to remedy those situations. And it's really not about a solution, but it is what is the right solution for where we are at this point in time. So with that, we'll open it up to questions that you have for the three of us.
Okay.
This is very timely in my mind, and you know, I already said I was a fan of this kind of thing, having this course. 'Cause last week, Friday, Amanda and Diane and myself were over at Bethesda Grade School when they had their presentation on the stuff that is typically non-recyclable, and they collected an incredible amount of toothpaste tubes and all that stuff. And to see the energy and the enthusiasm, I know they were getting a playground out of this, but we put that aside, and understand these kids, you know, K through 5, with the energy and enthusiasm they were giving towards an environmental science issue. And in my own mind, I'm trying to link what they were doing with where we're going with this class here, and someplace there's got to be a link there, and it's great. So I just think this is very timely, and we can make a connection all the way through our program, not just in the high school level, but all the way through our programs, age-wise and level-wise, to this need for environmental protection and sustainability. So I think it's a great idea, and it's like I said, very timely.
Thank you.
Too bad it's not a requirement.
Fantastic. We look forward to seeing you next month.
All right.
Thank you.
Keep it up. Keep it up. You're right on target.
All right, moving on to our next discussion item, forward exam data. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Let's get this set up here. So at 12:01 this morning, DPI released the forward exam results from last spring, as well as the ACT and Aspire results, made those public. So those are available on the DPI website now. So I'm here today to just share with you some forward data from our results from last spring. You do have this data available in Wise-Local for those of you who've had the opportunity to be in there now, so you can disaggregate that data by grade level, by school, etc. So tonight, well, first of all, let me jump into what the forward exam is, just as a reminder. It is an assessment based on our state standards that we administer in grades 3 through 8 for English language arts, so that includes reading and writing, and then in math. Our 4th and 8th graders also are assessed in science, and then our 4th, 8th, and 10th graders are assessed in social studies. So each of those assessments has multiple test sessions that are a part of it. It involves multiple choice, written response, multiple part problems. They have, because it's all taken electronically, they have drag and drop items. They have items, for example, and there's a math item
they're a type of math item where students can draw the hands on a clock, using their iPads. So they can draw a number line, create graphs. So far beyond just the typical bubble sheets that we used to use. So when students' forward exams are scored, they are given one of 4 designations. They either receive a 4 for advanced, a 3 for proficient, a 2 for basic, or 1 for below basic. And so the state defines a 3 or a proficient score. They say it means that students demonstrate adequate understanding and the ability to apply the knowledge and skills for their grade level that is associated with college content readiness. So we noticed when we made a shift from WKCE to Badger to the forward exam that the rigor continued to increase with an emphasis really on that college content readiness. As I'm reporting this data, I'm going to show that I've divided it by grade level. And we're reporting it in a similar manner to how I see us reporting the results of our district achievement goals that we've set for the next few years. So I've put this together with that in mind. We've included in this the forward results for each grade level for those students who were with us from September of last year. So these are the students who had a full year of exposure with the Waukesha School District. And then I have also folded into these numbers our students who participated in the alternate assessment. So that is given to students, about 1% of our school population that have significant disabilities. And so they take an alternate version of the assessment called the DLM. So those numbers are also included here so that we make sure we're looking at all of our students. So when we look at the forward results, oftentimes we'll combine the percent of students in that 3 category or proficient and the students in that 4 category or advanced, and just report the percentage of proficient and advanced. So on the left side there, that chart that shows by grade level the percent of students at that grade that were proficient and advanced on math. And then on the right, you can see it visually represented there, with the blue being the advanced category, proficient being green, basic being yellow, and below basic being red. And so our goal is to have all of our students being proficient or advanced.
Amy, what's the state average?
The state average for proficient or advanced overall was 43.8%. That varies by grade level, with the highest percentage at 3rd grade, and then the percentage dropping as it moves to 8th grade.
How do they, I guess when you see the drop in middle school, is there some cause and effect that we can share on, you can share with that?
Like I said, the state has a range of percentages here for average from 50% for 3rd grade to 8th grade being at 36.6%. So I would say it's not uncommon to see a drop among middle schoolers in assessment.
They don't take it seriously.
Motivation factor may be a piece of that.
They don't take it seriously.
So, and that was one of our considerations a couple of years ago. We used to give our 8th graders the Aspire assessment as well as the forward exam and a spring map assessment. We cut that back. So, and do not administer the Aspire at 8th grade because we wanted them to be putting forth their best effort on assessments. And so we tried to reduce some of what they were having to participate in. So, but obviously we've noticed that drop as well, and that's something, middle school principals, we've been talking about that too.
That might have to do with the classroom teacher at the elementary level. I mean, they're with those kids all day long. They can build them up, encourage them. You go to middle school, and you don't have, that's single.
Not segmented as much. Yeah. I think there are multiple factors that play into every assessment that students
And
take.
it's really no different in any other school district if you look at other
If
school
the district,
districts.
yeah, the district average, or the state average is
Yeah.
similar, so, yeah. These are the ELA results. So again, percentages proficient and advanced there on the left.
state overall percentage of proficient and advanced was 42.4. And it ranges from 44.9 as a high at 7th grade to 8th grade. The percentage proficient and advanced at the state level is 37%. One of the things we talked about as a teaching and learning team as we looked at these results was the impact of the CLM, the comprehensive literacy model that we've been implementing now for a few years, but are really continuing to build that implementation and providing resources to teachers. There are more resources in the hands of our literacy teachers now than there ever have been before. So we look to continue to see that grow. And then science, as I said, that's administered in 4th and 8th grade. The state average for science was 49.4, with 51.2 at 4th grade and 48.5 at 8th grade. And then social studies is administered at 4th, 8th, and 10th grade. And there's an overall percentage at the state level of proficient and advanced at 50.6%. And that's a high of 4th grade, 54.1 is the state average. So as you know, we have district goals, and I know they're hard to read there, but our 3rd grade goal is at the end of this year that 55% of our students will be proficient and advanced on the forward exam. And then we're looking for our 4th through 8th graders, 60% of them to be proficient or advanced in ELA. And in math, across the board, we are looking for 55% of our students to be proficient and advanced on this school year's forward exam, which we will administer beginning in March of this year.
Jody, how did we do on our district goals last year? Did we do pretty well? This is the first
This
time.
is
I
the first
thought
time
so.
we've really publicly defined district achievement goals.
Yeah, I thought so.
So some things that have been happening that will continue to happen specifically around forward and continuing to build our work toward those achievement goals. I will be doing what we're calling some data literacy sessions, and it's not specific to literacy, but it's specific about being able to understand, interpret, analyze data, and I'll be meeting with small groups of principals in November and December to really outline a process and walk them through a consistent process that they can use in their buildings too. So really understanding just data in general and being able to really understand the data before jumping to conclusions and defining actions. So it's, we talked about starting out really low on the ladder of really just understanding the data first before we get too far. So that's a process I'll be taking principals through. In August, once the results were made available to schools, we did kind of a forward exam deep dive with principals, so they really got in to look at the data, looking at it by subgroup. We looked at some of the resources that DPI had recently put out, some sample items and some different frameworks that would help our teachers to really teach our state standards and understand what is on the forward exam and how the questions are asked and those kinds of things to help our teachers better understand what our students are experiencing during those exams. So schools continue to look at their subgroup data, and I think they're doing a better job than ever at that, Wise-Local being a part of what's helping them do that. School sale goals. are focusing on increasing student achievement, and Jody and Joe have been really firm on that work and making sure that that's consistent across schools. We know, and you've heard about our AVID implementation, but we know that that's going to continue to impact our student achievement. And then, as I mentioned before, our CLM work and the depth of that implementation just continues to grow. So those are all positives that are going to help us reach those district achievement goals.
Amy, could you tell me when school report cards will become available?
Draft report cards that are embargoed were made available to principals today, so it's been a big day for data. And they will be made public on November 13th. So I anticipate being here maybe in December to talk about those.
Great.
And I anticipate being here next month to talk about ACT. I'm looking at Jody. Yep, she says that's right. Okay, I figured.
And I know Dr. Gray was looking at just brainstorming some ideas to engage kids more into testing or some incentives. I mean, I know that's out there too, so,
And we did talk about that.
which I think would be really important, or to find out what other districts are doing, if anything.
Nothing? Thank you very much, Amy.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. That's the end of the discussion items. Under other business, is there any recommendation for future committee meetings? We'd like to see? Nothing? Is there, alrighty. That concludes our teaching and learning meeting for this evening. Our next scheduled meeting is November 6th, 2018, in this room.
Election day.
Stand in line. It's always that way. It's always that way. Thank you very much.